What's up guys? Today on the Project Nomad we are adding 1-ton steering to my 80 series Landcruiser. We finally get to work on my Landcruiser and we are finally adding 1-ton steering to it, which means we're basically cutting up some tube, adding a steering arm, and welding a few things together to get it done. For as good as the stock Landcruiser components are, they leave certain things to be desired for us 80 series owners. The biggest issues we encounter is the clearance with our tie rods and our radius arms. Because of how our steering is designed, our tie rod is actually in the back of our axle and it's actually pretty protected when you have a stocked rig. However, when you start lifting it up, you have this situation where tie rod will actually make contact with the radius arms in the back when you either flex or during part of its steering cycle. And sometimes it just occurs when you just lift up your rig. So it's an issue from the get-go with the steering. It just means we're upgrading our tie rod, and usually it means a thicker diameter rod that's going to be replacing our stock one, which increases the probability of making contact because you don't have that much of a gap, and people already have issues where it is necessary for them to grind parts of the radius arms to clear the tie rod, which isn't great. For me, I already have to grind some of it off, but it's not that bad. I wouldn't prefer to do it, but today we are going to be changing this entire situation so that we won't have this problem, and with the parts that we have, we will also be upgrading the diameter, the thickness, and the durability of our tie rods now. So let's get to it. The bulk of the stuff on the table right now is a GM 1-ton Welding steering kit that I got from Rough Stuff. And as a disclaimer, I bought it. It was not provided to me. I just thought this was the most complete kit that I could find at the moment. So let's keep going through this. The Welding steering kit is basically a DIY setup that provides you basically everything that you need to have 1-ton steering. So you have GM 1-ton tie rods, high angle tie rod, and it's set up for the front. This is traditionally a very good upgrade for most domestic solid axle vehicles. However, but because of how the 80 is set up, I also had to buy a right-hand drive steering arm for the driver's side knuckle so that I can have a mounting point to put the new tie rod and steering setup in the front. And this actually really completes the setup. However, there are some miscellaneous things that I chose to get. I got these pucks that are designed to take up all the extra slack and movement that you'll find in most Welding steering setups. I also had to get this plate because on the 80, the steering stabilizer is no longer in the factory position and the mount is now too close to the steering setup. So I'm gonna have to fabricate a new mount for the stabilizer, and this is where I'm gonna get at. In addition to that, I also had to get a 1-inch drill bit as well as a 7/8 drill bit so that I can drill out the holes on the steering arms as well as the pitman arm so that I can install the inserts, weld up one of the inserts for this entire steering setup. I'll be providing a link to almost everything here in the description down below. So the first thing we have to do is take the steering apart. This is the original OEM steering arm that you would find on a US spec 80 series. This is the right-hand drive version of the same part. So I have a steering mount in the front now. So I'm adding this thing and then adding the rest. So when you have everything off at this point, it is reasonable to start drilling out the the arms to 7/8 so we can insert the inserts. You're gonna need a 7/8 drill bit, and I would recommend going really slow and using a lot of oil so that it doesn't overheat the tip, and you still have the tip after this job is done. Drilling out steering arms is a pretty tough job if you're doing it freehand. I do recommend taking them off and then using an actual drill press to actually drill it out. I learned the hard way that these arms are pretty stout, so I took them off and then took them to a drill press and then drilled them out. But once you finally drill them through, you can just get the inserts and insert them. And now they're ready for the new tie rods to be installed, and then measuring the length that you need between the two ends, and you can just cut the tube and it's all set. About the 80 though is that because our original tie rod is in the rear, we can reinstall it and have our previous alignment ready to go, so we don't actually have to fiddle around with getting the front and the rear of the knuckles in line. We can just go off of our old tie rod and it's all set. So let me install the new tie rods. And you go in here, extend it a little, and she fits. So this is the original pitman arm off of the Landcruiser. We drilled a 1-inch hole so that we can install this insert in so that it has the correct taper for the new high angle tie rod that we got from the kit. And all we have to do now is just weld it in. While here, I also welded up the stabilizer mounts. One was just a clamp with a rod that fits the stabilizer, and the other one was a larger, longer version of the factory mount that was originally on there. With all that done, we can actually get all the tube in position, get it tacked up, and fully welded so that all the tie rods are done and they mount up the stabilizer. So everything is installed. I tested it out, everything moves correctly. I can steer lock to lock and nothing interferes. With a minor kiss from the panhard, but other than that, it's at full lock, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. Right now, all the components just need to be greased up with the zerts. I'll do that in a second. But everything is installed. The whole reason that we did this was to move the tie rod to the front, and the tie rod is now in the front. It is beefier. I still have access to OEM style steering stabilizers / dampeners for Landcruisers. And I have GM compatible tie rods that I can find anywhere in the US. I also added these little bushings from Stinky Fab Off-Road that are supposed to stop the steering clunk when you have these Welding steering setups. So hopefully this works and gets rid of that and I never notice it. But other than that, it's relatively cheap. It's like 15 bucks. per bushing, so it does get expensive when you do 3, but when you're doing a project like this, you kind of want to make it worth it. So I'd rather not deal with that situation later on where I notice and I'm not happy with the steering anymore. If this just gets rid of it and I never notice it, cool, that's great. But that's it. So until next time, be safe and tread lightly.